Assalamualaikum and good evening everybody. Welcome back from the platform of the Skills Education Consultancy. I'm Dr. Kiran Hashmi once again with you all and continuing the very same topic that we have been talking about the past 3 weeks. We have invited yet another student of mine. It's a pride for me to call my students who are now, mashallah, say professionally qualified educationists, professionally qualified teachers, psychologists, teacher educators, and so on. So I have invited somebody who was my student when he was in the school. So he was there when he was doing his O levels and I was his teacher. And since then we are closely connected to each other. Mashallah, he is now a professionally qualified psychologist, Rehan Rehman. And Rehan, mashallah, is associated with teaching since he has completed his master's in psychology. He is a professional psychologist. He actually does a lot of support to gives a lot of support to students and to teachers or anybody who needs help in psychology. So I thought it's important to invite him today to talk about something on mental health. Now, for the past 3 weeks, everybody, as you people know, that we have been mainly talking about child abuse and prevention. But I thought today let's talk about something that how we can ensure. I'm sorry, internet is a bit slow, so please accept my apologies. Rehan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep, I can.
Thank you. Okay. So for the past 3 weeks, everybody, as you all know, that we have mainly been talking about child abuse and prevention, and we spoke a number of strategies, ways, reasons, and we in the last one we invited a child protection officer who was again a professionally qualified one. So today I thought let me invite Rehan, and if Rehan can help us understand that how can we make our schools a mentally healthy places for students, for teachers, and for the outer society. What kind of a role do we think schools can play in developing mental health of people? Because the kind of abuses which are in the societies these days, they are basically an outburst or a reason of mental sickness, mental frustrations, and different forms of depressions. So let's talk about it. Rehan, over to you. So I would really like you to first introduce yourself. Everybody, as I always request, these are very, very important topics that we are sharing with you. Please invite as many audiences as your colleagues as possible so that we have a better outreach. Over to you, Rehan. I would really like you to introduce yourself first and then
Mm-hmm.
we will come to the topic.
All right, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Hello. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday evening. I know all of us have been pretty busy recently given the whole pandemic. I mean, we are juggling between different roles. A lot of you might be teachers, might be counselors, might be educators, and kudos to all of you for just surviving the pandemic as of now, and then helping others as well in terms of these tough times. So, good job to all of you, first of all. As Miss Kiran, right? So she's Dr. Kiran now, but when I knew her about in 2007, I guess, right? It's been a while now. I used to call her Miss Kiran. So for me, she will always be Miss Kiran first, and then
Yes,
she will be
Kiran.
Dr. Kiran. And thanks a lot for inviting me to this platform. It feels great to finally, use your educational consultancy to, reach out to so many people. So as you now know, all of you, my name is Rehan. Since the past about 6 to 7 years, I've been teaching at different A level schools around Karachi. My background, to be honest, was in psychology initially, but then I switched it to neuroscience. So, if at all, I am actually a neuroscientist by training rather than a psychologist. I often tell my students, right, that some of you know more psychology than me. I'm just there to, just facilitate all of you. But yeah, by training, I'm a neuroscientist. But I think the amalgamation of psychology and neuroscience since the past few decades has opened a range of different perspectives regarding behavior, regarding development, regarding how we all could make our lives better. So yeah, that's a very brief introduction about me. I mean, I can go on and on, but in the interest of time, I guess, uh, you know we can have a conversation more about mental health. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I think I will just drop my my contact details to Miss Kiran, and then you can reach out to me through her.
Right. So thank you very much, Rehan, for your introduction. And I think people are really interested to hear something from you. So I'm now handing the mic completely to you. Please start sharing about mental health. I would really appreciate audiences if you can raise your points here, because today's webinar is slightly different. It's more of a conversation. We're not going to have a proper presentation or something, so I'll appreciate if you can raise your questions and Rehan can answer. But before that, by the time we get your responses, there's certain questions, Rehan, which I would like you to ask. So my very first question to you is that as a neuroscientist and as a psychologist, how could you help us, teachers, adults, specifically teacher educators, and even students, to develop and maintain a healthy school? What are those simple strategies that we need to keep in mind and ensure that they're part of the curriculum and the whole school process, so that our students are also mentally healthy, our staff is also mentally healthy, and we have a positive synergy that goes around?
Right. I like the fact that in the question you mentioned that it's a synergy between different people, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
usually people think it's only the teachers who are responsible for what is going on in the class. But to be honest, students only spend about maybe 5 hours, 6 hours. Typically at A levels, my students spend like 1 or 2 hours in a day with me, right? So a lot of things that go behind the scenes in terms of mental health is basically regarding parents and administrators in the school, and how our entire society actually defines education and what are the outcomes in terms of education that we have, right? Probably one of the biggest sources of anxiety and stress that I see in my students and across uh, the range is basically the whole idea of competition, right? The whole idea that it's a rat race to get A's, and now I mean it's an A star, so an A is like the first loser according to many people. Now आपका A star क्यों नहीं आया है, and a range of different things, right? So the first thing is that as a society, what are we valuing, right? What do we value at the end of the day? So in terms of education, right, important grades are a precursor to a lot of different top-notch universities, and that is true. You need good grades, but at the end of the day, if grades are only the sole determinant of your academic performance or of your outcome, then it is not justified in terms of education, right? Education is much more nuanced than simple grades. So the first thing that I tell students and parents as well, right? Some of them might actually disagree with me on this. Is create an environment, right, in your homes, in your classrooms, where you're not only fostering the idea of grades कि आपको बस यही grades लाना है, but you actually get at the level of the child to just talk about anything and everything with them, to be honest. A teacher, at least in the classroom, should be creating an environment where he or she or they can actually welcome students in whatever way they want to, right? One of my mentors used to tell me, get the child's heart, the mind will follow. So a lot of times children are distracted, and we mistake that as as disruptive behavior, as a student who is not motivated, as a student who is acting out. But what is the underlying reason behind all of those things, right? Why are students doing all of those things? um, and sometimes we actually then complain to their parents, to the administrators कि यार ये बच्चा हमारी क्लास में attention pay नहीं करता है और ये सोता है and all of that. And this had happened to me as a teacher as well initially in my career, but then I realized that there were a lot of problems going on in the child's life. So it's just a manifestation of what's going on in their lives, uh, at home or otherwise. So the first thing that I always try to make sure in my classes are to just get to the child's level and welcome opinions, right? A very simple strategy to do that is to have de-stressor classes. I mean, I call them de-stressor classes. So maybe like once in a week or maybe once in a fortnight, depending on how much time we can squeeze in, right, in the curriculum. What I do is I just have classes where we can just talk about anything and everything, right? And depending on how the participation goes, like I direct those classes into talking about either mental health, or it could be anything that's going on in the world right now, current affairs. Not that we don't have that usually in our classes. I mean, at least in my classes, I make it a point to like not just focus on the book, on the syllabus, but also welcome different thoughts and opinions that go beyond the syllabus. But I make sure that at least once in a fortnight or something along those lines, we have a completely dedicated class that just talks about, children's mental health or what's going on or their future or their plans or anything random. I mean, maybe talk about a movie that's being playing in the cinema. I mean, what's going on over there? What's the new song, right? All these teenagers, of course, because I deal with teenagers. Social media is a very big platform for them, right? So I usually like kid around in terms of यार आप मुझे बता दो कि Instagram or Facebook पे कैसे post करते, because my pictures don't come out to be very good and all of those things. So to just talk to them at their level. So that's one thing that matters, because what happens is students realize KR, there is someone out there who is willing to listen to me. There is someone out there who's willing to hear me. And that's probably what students want at the end of the day. They just want someone to understand them, someone to listen to them.
Yeah. Rehan, I just have a question after listening to your conversation of a de-stressor class. I really like this title actually, de-stressor. It can actually be made a part of our curriculum and our academic planning throughout the year. How do you ensure as a teacher, because you're dealing with a very delicate age, adolescents, teenagers is the most delicate age ever. How do you develop the trust of students? How do you ensure that the students open up? Although, even though they're talking about something very random, even though they're talking about movies, even though they're talking about something which is not really related to them, but in an indirect mode. For me, development of that confidence, that trust, and that security that whatever I'm going to talk about stays within the teacher. What are those strategies? How do you ensure that that takes place smoothly in your classrooms?
So during the first few days of classes, right? During the introductory classes, I'm not just telling my students about the syllabus and my expectations out of them as students, but I also tell them what I can offer them, right? That goes beyond just simple teaching, right? So during the first few classes, I make it very, known to them that they have to take care of their mental health. They have to take care of themselves. They have to take care of other people around them. And and what kind of a classroom do I want to foster, right? So the objectives, those expectations are very clear. So even from the first day onwards, students now understand that this is a teacher who is, going to listen to me, who is willing to at least go the extra mile and facilitate me in my needs, right? And then I give them examples from whatever I had done in previous classes as well, like for my outgoing students. So at the back of their minds, they're like associating this idea of, a welcoming environment, a nurturing environment with the classroom. So the next time when they come into the classroom, they already have snippets in their minds about, okay, so this is a class where I can be myself. And whenever students talk, right, I'm not someone who is saying, yeah, ye kya sawal pooch liya, and what is going on and all of those things. And sometimes we as teachers can lose our minds, right? I mean, mental health, so we are talking about students right now. There's a whole different mental health idea about teachers as well, right? And I will
I
touch
was
upon
about
that.
to come to that.
uh,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
about to come to
I
that.
will, I will touch upon that later on as well in our discussion. But as of now, the focus is on students, because like those are the major stakeholders in the classroom. So so the next time when they come to the class, they actually know, okay, my opinions will be taken into account, and no one will judge me. And I'm very serious about other students also, in terms of if they listen to someone's opinions or not. It's fine if you disagree. It's fine if you have differences of opinions. But there's something that I make it a point to tell all students is कि यार सबको सुनो, right? Listen to everyone. And if someone is, like disinterested, bullying someone else, that is something that I act on immediately. So at that point I have to intervene, because I want to create a classroom environment that is comfortable. So once it is comfortable to begin with, then students, even if they are like, shy or maybe a bit introverted, वो आराम से खुलते, right? And it's not कि यार आप बस आपको बोलना जरूरी है. You don't want to talk, it's fine. No one is going to push you out. But just sitting in that class, where people are, like talking about different things. It's actually, de-stressing students in terms of, okay, it's not just this grade that I have to get, it's not just an exam or just a past paper that I have to solve, but everyone is in the same boat as me, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about the idea that I am not experiencing something that is so out of the world that
Mm.
that I can blame myself. A lot of students and also end up doing this, right? They end up blaming themselves. Okay, why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me? I mean, everyone else can get good grades and everyone else can pay attention in class and everyone can answer. So, what's wrong with me? They start questioning themselves. But then, when every student realizes that this is not a specific case with them, at some point or the other, all of us have gone through these moments in our lives, right? Although intensities, of course, vary, acceptance automatically aati hai, right? Awareness automatically aati hai, in the sense that it's now something that we can normalize. So the whole idea of mental health is also a taboo in our society, in our culture.
Yeah.
Log
It
kya
is.
kahenge, and all of those things.
Everybody is
Although,
pagal. Yeah,
yeah,
everybody is a pagal. The moment you pick up something that is
exactly,
related to your mind and you are being asked to go
exactly,
to a psychologist, a consultant, तुम तो पागल हो। इसके
exactly,
बारे में बात ही नहीं
exactly.
करते। Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Although I should acknowledge that awareness has been, on the rise these days, and thanks to like platforms like these and a lot of social media, I think social media can really be harnessed in the right
Yeah.
direction for teenagers and young adults because I mean, there was a time when if students used to like post something about their mental health online, they would get judged, they would get bullied. But now students, cushy cushy, they are saying, I went to my therapist and this is what happened and all of that. So you see,
Yeah.
harnessing all of these things and reinforcing and fostering all these ideas can actually lead to a lot of acceptances, and it creates a climate where all of us can eventually accept each other for who we are, and then be there for all of them. So uh, in sum, right, the answer to that question is, how do I make sure that students open up? It's not a biggie. It's not a biggie. It's just simple acts that you do. You smile to them, you greet them,
Mhm.
you tell them I'm there for you. You constantly remind all of these students that there are facilities that can help them out with all of these things. You can come to me to begin with. Anything you tell me will be confidential. And also, a lot of students don't want to open up in front of the entire class, right? That's something
Yeah.
that students are also afraid about, right? Issues of confidentiality, privacy, all of that. So we tell them that as a teacher, I mean, I can, be there for you, so we can like talk outside the classroom, and we can arrange for like, a meeting where we have like a one-on-one session where I can speak to you and you can open up to me if you want to. But again, depending on what the training and the background of the teacher is, they might be able to counsel students or they might not be able to. But a lot of colleges now have an in-house counselor, right? That they can like direct students to, and I think that's a nice shift when it comes to a lot of colleges and schools these days. They're hiring professionals, right? So as teachers, because we're always on the go, we run from like at A levels it's usually part time, so we run from one college to the other and so on and so forth. So kabhi kabar wo ek
Yes.
disengagement si
So
aa
I'm just
jati hai with
sharing.
students. So
I'm
eventually
just
what
sharing few
happens is
comments
that
with
a
you,
lot
Rehan.
of, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just sharing few comments with you. I really want you to just ponder some time on it and answer. Okay? De-stressor class, and this very same person is asking this. Wondering if Rehan, you have other teachers who support you to share your strategies in your school the way you are doing it.
Right. Thanks for that question. So there has been a paradigm shift, right? In education in terms of accepting mental health. So now in our staff meetings, we actually are always reminded about how to be cognizant about students' mental health and be there for them. So that's something that other teachers are also fostering indeed. Although there are differences to the extent to which we go the extra mile, but I would like to say that a lot of my colleagues, alhamdulillah, they realize the importance of all of these things and foster that. We do. Um, and usually what we have is like a network where if a child is actually coming up with problems to the same teacher constantly, we do make a note about this as well, and then we have to like inform the counselor, and only the counselor, right? No one else, because of the whole confidentiality and privacy issues, right? So counselors then also can intervene in that case. Another thing that the audience should realize is that I teach at private schools right over here in Karachi. So the private schools still, have people who are educated in the sense that family backgrounds, the college itself, they foster all of these things, right? But
Oh,
when you talk about education, it's not just one segment of our society, right? I mean, it's a huge segment that we need to cater to at the end of the day.
oh,
So I
oh,
wonder what would happen in a lot of government schools, and in a lot of schools that don't even have awareness about all of these things. And I don't have anything against the government schools, of course. Kudos to them if they actually implement all of these techniques. But we are taking baby steps right now, and the rate at which mental health is deteriorating, we actually need a lot to do to catch up to that level.
right. Okay, just one question, and that is my question, Rehan. While we talk about mental health, developing, again, fostering mental health support, maintaining privacy and confidentiality, to what extent do you think affection and compassion really helps in developing or, enhancing students' mental health?
Affection is at the heart, is at the heart of my teaching, and I think as teachers we need to understand that our students are not just beings that wear a uniform, come to class with their bags. Some of them, like, the bags are heavier than them. The whole idea is to understand the whole idea कि वो इंसान है. The first thing is इंसानियत हमें समझनी है, right? We need to understand that. I mean, sometimes when students tell me things in class, मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो जाते हैं. Not in class, outside class, when they open up, I'm like, how the hell are you even, coming to class and putting on this face, smiling clearly to me, and just there in class, because what you are going through is like something that I can't even fathom, right? And despite all of that, they wake up every morning, they come to class, and they are like, they're just trying to push themselves, right? It's just that they want acknowledgement कि हमारे साथ एक चीज हो रही है, कोई मुझे समझने वाला है भी या नहीं, right? They want to understand, they want someone to understand that. And if someone understands that, trust me, you see paramount changes in their behaviors. You see paramount वो बोलते सर हम सब कर लेंगे, we will handle all of these things, because हम आज तक भी तो handle खुद से करते आ रहे, right? And that is debatable if that's a good thing or a bad thing, handling things yourself. But the idea is हम आज तक तो handle करते आ रहे, हम अब बाद में भी कर लेंगे, it's fine. But please, we need someone to just acknowledge us, to accept us, to not call out on our behaviors, just because we are facing issues in our lives, and due to which our mental health is deteriorating. So it's just the idea of understanding the students, bringing out the affection, and even a small gesture like a smile. Hello, how are you doing, right? Depending on how comfortable students are, right? I usually have this fist punch with them, right? Say a fist punch. It's just the idea that you are, getting at their level. I walk around class, right? I'm sitting in one of the chairs with them, so I'm not towards, it's not one side of the class versus the other side of the class, right? It's the whole idea of we are mingling around with each other. So we have these open spaces where I sit in amongst them, I walk up and down. That simple gesture is unconsciously telling them that the teacher is not someone who is third teacher. Of course, we have to respect our boundaries. We have to do that. We have to do that, right? If students are not comfortable with fist punching, I wouldn't even encourage them to do so, right? We need to maintain our boundaries and all of that. But as you do all of these things, as you walk around the class, in between students, among students, when you sit with them, they realize that there is no me versus them. It's not me versus the teacher, right? It's basically an entire class. Yes, we have different rules. We have different roles. We need to maintain our boundaries, of course. But the idea is it's one entire class. So it's like one family that we are then fostering. And a lot of people then end up making friendships this way, right? And then as long as they have a social support system beyond the class, they can do well.
All right. So, Rehan, thank you. Let's talk something about the teachers. How can we ensure mental health of teachers in the schools? And to the audience who are listening to me, please write your comments and questions here so that Rehan can answer. We will take your questions in between also, and we can take them at the end also. So, I'll appreciate if you can come up with your queries here. So, Rehan, again, what to do about teachers now?
All right. So when it comes to teachers, right? Well, I have a whole bias against this, right? Because I'm a teacher myself. So,
Yeah.
uh, first of all, एक तो है the whole concept of education again, right? Grades लाना, grades लाना, grades लाना. You got to make sure that that student gets an A and an A star because that's an outcome measure for us, right? That's an outcome measure for us.
Yeah.
No one will ask us कि यार आपने आपने students को कितना खुश किया है, did you actually foster some skills in them, have you changed them as better human beings, right? I mean, those are things that actually to me make the most difference. I
Both.
mean, and I'm
Yeah.
sure Miss slash Dr. Kiran now, right? I mean, I'm sure that
Mm.
you, when you were teaching us, the same thing was going in your mind, right? Like when we used to like come up to
Yeah.
you and thank you for whatever you did to us, and clearly now, I mean, whatever we are because of our teachers right now, and amongst
Thank
many
you.
other people like our parents
Thank
and
you.
all of
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
uh it makes you happy, right? It makes you
It does.
happy. The
Mm.
same thing happens for every other teacher, I would believe so. Grades are, it's a cherry on the top when we see कि हाँ यार, we have so many students who ended up getting like A's and A stars or B's or whatsoever. But from a parental point of view, from an administrator point of view, right? The outcome that people judged on, that we get judged on, that people judge us on, is the grade,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So the whole rat race is really stressing for us as well, because
It is.
especially in the Cambridge system, right? Students, they work the entire year, and then वो exam में बैठते हैं, and the sole exam is the determinant of their entire academic life, I would say,
Yes.
especially at A
Yeah.
levels, like whatever you have done in the past 11, 12 years, आप उस दिन अच्छा कर लेते हो and you are great. And आप उस
Agree.
दिन, for any reason you have any problems, you screw up, you mess up, you're gone, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that bothers students, and it bothers us as well. To be honest, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night just thinking, "Ki, yaar, did I cover this with my students? Did I actually give them this tip, right? Did I actually,
Mm.
tell them that this is something that can come up in a tricky manner, in a twisted manner? Chalte
Mm.
phirte, I'm like, oh my God, this is suddenly that's coming to my mind, right? So it shows the fact that I am also anxious as a person regarding my students, and not only the students. And this happens with a lot of teachers as well. I mean, it's not only me. I wouldn't want to generalize this to a lot of teachers, but this happens with more teachers than one thinks about. So the
Yeah.
idea of teachers being anxious about their students, and
Mm.
that's solely from this academic point of view, right? From this outcome oriented uh you know society where we want grades to be the sole determinant, right? That's
Yeah.
one aspect. The other aspect is we want to be there for the students, but we can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
We can only do so much
I think yeah.
because we can counsel them, we can help them out, but like you mentioned initially, you have a range of different people who are involved in shaping the child's minds, right? So while the teacher can contribute a lot to the child's personality and development, at the end of the day, they are at their own home environments for majority of the time. So that's something that at a point we go like, I feel helpless, right? Because um I mean, if the parents do not want to inculcate or foster such an environment, it makes us feel very helpless. A lot of students can't even go and seek proper professional help because they are afraid their parents might actually reprimand them. Some of them have to like sneak out. वो कहते हैं कि हम मैं दोस्त के घर पे जा रहा हूँ, and they take their friends into confidence, and they then sneak out like this to actually go to mental health care specialists. And it is so upsetting, and that takes a toll on you as well. कि आप चाहते हो कि आप इतनी चीजें करो, you want to be there for the students,
Yeah.
but you can't get to that
Only
finish line, right? It's
you can.
upsetting. it's
Yeah.
it's upsetting. And
Mm.
along the lines of these things, what I would like to say is there are so many students that we cater to. Like alhamdulillah, on average, like each academic year, I mean, I cater to about, or and I teach to about 300 students on average, right? And that's like a huge number of students. 300 students may say, even if around like 50 or 60, they come up to you for help, they come up to you for, extra support and mentorship. I can be there for them, but then I can't be there for them 24 hours in a day, right? So because I have my own personal life, right? I have to cater to my own responsibilities, my own family, and sometimes students, they forget this, right? They forget that we are not there as parents for them, although some of us do consider, us as a parental figure, but and because of access to social media, technology, telephone, all of that, uh, the boundaries are blurring, right, between the teacher and the
Yes.
student in terms of contact. I mean, एक जमाना था when I was like, if I want to contact my teachers, वो क्या बोलेंगे, वो मुझे डांटेंगे, गुस्सा करेंगे, and all of those things, right? That wasn't the case with you, alhamdulillah, right? I
Yes.
remember we could like ask questions, and we could like arrange meetings outside the class as well. But for a lot of students, the boundaries are blurring, right? So that is also a cause of concern to us. KR, how do we balance our personal life with our professional lives, right? I mean, you have a student who is, let's say, for example, feeling suicidal at 1:30 in the morning, right? And let's say if they message you, so आप क्या करोगे? What what do you do? Like they suddenly like called you, messaged you, और आप नींद में देख के आप बस देख रहे हो कि okay, I see the student, and now I just, for example, for some reason, I just go like, yaar, acha koi message hoega, they have a question or something, I'm sleeping, right? But the next morning, I get to know that student was on the verge of committing suicide. Now what? And it's very easy for us to take the blame for all of these things as well, right? So that burnout, that constant anxiety, that constant stress has taken a huge toll on teachers as well. That's why I've lost my hair. I mean, I'm not that old, but I've lost almost all my hair because of that reason, right? It does take a toll on one's life. So
One
these are like the
time,
things.
sorry,
These
I'm
are,
just cutting you
yeah,
off. It was
sure.
very short. I want to share three comments with you, and then there's the question that has come to me
Mm-hmm.
separately. So just
Mm-hmm.
have a look at it. This is okay. Yeah, this you have already answered. Actually, Aisha is the one who's writing so many things today, which is interesting. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then
Thank you. I agree. I absolutely agree. We need to rethink what does success mean to us, not only in schools but as a society. I mean, success की definition क्या होती है? So the idea of shaming, yeah, yeah. So, like I was saying, it's the small things that matter at the end of the day, right? For all of us. And let's say, for instance, someone is asking a question, right? Someone is asking a question, and I go like, "यार ये क्या बेवकूफ सवाल पूछा है?" Right? I mean, that simple word "बेवकूफ सवाल" can make this child question themselves for the rest of their lives. It
yes,
can make the child question themselves for the rest of their lives. And the next time that the child has any question, they will not open up. They will not share things because they know that my teacher now considers me as someone who is not capable, someone who is bayakoof. So, as teachers, we need to be very, very cognizant about how we are using our words in the class because every
yes,
word, students ponder over it, they take it down in their minds, they process it, and फिर labeling हो जाती, it sticks to them, that label sticks to them. So the one thing that I often share with my colleagues is that we have to be very aware with how we are, talking to our students in terms of the words we are using. It's easier said than done because again, we are humans. We might, get a bit annoyed. We might get angry sometimes, but that's where the whole regulation of our emotions has to come into place, where we need to like take one step back and go like, we are shaping the child's minds right now. Literally, we are. I mean, like with my phrases, with my words, we are shaping outcomes for the future. So the idea of shaming is something that we need to be very, very careful about. And it's not just in the classroom, it's also beyond the class, right? So what would happen if parents actually tell children that aap capable nahi ho, and then the whole idea of comparison also is very, very frequent in our society. And that's where I think teachers play an even more important role, because if teachers are there to motivate students and make them realize their efforts and their opinions and their strengths, then whatever is happening in the home environment, or not only in the home but outside the school, maybe we can mitigate that idea. So that's where the shame can actually, at least be mitigated to an extent where the student is not impacted in the long run.
Thank you, Rehan. There are three more questions that somebody has posted to me on a separate platform on WhatsApp. So I'm copying them here for you if you could kindly answer. Somebody is asking that as a teacher, how can I tell someone has a mental health problem? Because the teacher has actually texted, she's actually from an intelligent sector, and she's saying that I'm not a professionally qualified psychologist. How would I come to know whether a student in my class is really going through some mental health problems? So, any strategies, any solutions, any ideas to get the ideas, any initial diagnosis that we can do?
Right, right. And this is a tough one. This is actually a very tough question, right? And a very good question to ask as well, right? A very relevant one. That how do I even identify if my student has any mental health issue, right? And I would like to approach this question in two different ways, right? The first way is the student is showing some outward signs, right? Some outwardly signs हमें नजर आ रहे हैं. For example, let's say the student was very, very attentive, motivated in class, right? They were answering, they were attentive, their attendance was also great. But suddenly there's been a change in their behaviors, right? They are sleepy, they are drowsy, they're not taking a lot of part in class activities anymore. Their body language is literally, like when you don't feel good about yourself, you're like, आपकी body language में, you don't feel that exuberance, right? So your body language is you're flaccid in your body language. You're constantly yawning in that sense. A lot of students end up biting their nails, and this may not really manifest the idea that they have a mental issue, right? This doesn't mean they have a mental issue. कोई confirmation नहीं है, right? This is just the first step to indicate and explore that maybe we should be observing the student a bit more closely, at least for the next 2-3 weeks, to see if this is a constant behavioral pattern that they show to us or not, right? So any changes from their normal behaviors, right, for the worse, and sometimes even for if they are literally, like, totally different in their behaviors, if they are very excited, that can also be a coping strategy that students are using to overcome whatever problems are going on in their lives. Some students also manifest behaviors that way. They actually do the opposite to use it as a coping strategy. So any small change in their behaviors, right, is probably an indicator that there is something that has been going on in their lives. Maybe it's something positive, and that's good. I mean, if something is positive, that's great. They don't have any problem, right? But usually, what I have realized as a teacher is that when I have observed students closely in this manner, uh, it has been indicative of some problem, some trouble that they are going on in their lives. So what I would do then is I would identify that student, and outside class then, right, or maybe I would tell the student, do you mind speaking to me, everything okay, right? आप पहले ऐसे शुरू करते हो, right? Don't just tell them आपको ये मसला है. The student will then be like, oh my god, the teacher knows this about me. Now I'm not even going to like be myself in class as much as I was initially, right? So the first thing is you just ask the child, is everything okay with you? Is there anything you want to share with me? I'm there for you, right? Just a quick reminder. And then maybe after a week or 2 weeks or so, the child might tell you, okay, you know what, sir, remember you asked me this, remember there was this problem. Yeah, you know what, I felt a bit, shy to communicate with you. I felt a bit embarrassed to tell this to you, but I am going through a problem, right? So that's one way you can identify it. The other way you can identify it is, and that's the harder way, right? That the harder way is if students don't open up to you. वो आपको बताते ही
जी
नहीं है. They don't talk, they internalize all of these things. You can't even gauge their behavioral patterns. कोई इतनी ज्यादा shift नहीं है from their normal behaviors. And at that point, what I personally do is I constantly tell students, if there is anything you want to tell me, please do so. I've been going through some ups and downs in my lives. Just creating an environment where you are normalizing the idea that mental health can deteriorate, and if it's deteriorating for all of us, then we are in this together. So that's something that might help students to then eventually open up to you. It just goes down to the whole idea of how you create an environment in the class that's welcoming, that's fostering, that's accepting of each student's behavior. So that's like the long route, right? You need to like be very patient, and you need to be hopeful that things will not go as wrong that suddenly a child is feeling suicidal, and then they suddenly like break out to you and went out to you, because in that case the severity of something would be so intense that aapko phir, maybe it might even be a bit late to even mitigate. So like that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And unfortunately sometimes it's not even identifiable, and we face the repercussions for that then. So it's something that we can't always identify. But what helps is literally create an environment in the class that's accepting.
Okay. It was just an extension of the same, Rehan. You have already answered the question, but specifically, students, the ones that go through anxiety or depression, how can we teachers, specifically in a classroom, if we have certain students, how can we provide them with a very initial support before taking them to a professional counselor?
So the first thing you want to tell them is, again, accept this, right? Normalize it. Don't tell them, "Oh my God, ये क्या हो गया तुम्हारे साथ? ये कैसे हो गया है?" And why didn't you tell me about this and all of that, right? The person is telling you something, you just listen to it. Just listen to it. Sometimes students don't want solutions, they just want you to listen to them. Because हम क्या करते हैं, अरे यार ये तो सबके साथ हो गया है, ओ ये तो सबके साथ है, ये तो बड़ा normal behavior है, ये तो यार सब don't say that. Don't say that to the student. What you want to do is you want to just offer a listening ear. Let the student take the course of the conversation in the way that they want to. All right. Okay. Right. How long have you been feeling this way for? What are your thoughts? What's going on in your mind? How do you feel? Are you doing anything about this? Did you tell anyone else about this? Right? Simple prompts, right? You just throw at them for them to like continue the conversation. So once you have identified all of these things that are going on with the students, what you can tell them, again, if you are someone who is qualified and not professionally, but at least you have some training in terms of identifying mental health, giving simple solutions, right? You can give those. If you're not someone who is trained, just direct them to the relevant professionals who can intervene. And for that, I really want schools to have counselors in place, have counselors on campus who can actually help students. And if there are
Interaction.
no counselors, then as teachers, I mean, we can direct them to people who we know are professionals. We can facilitate that interaction, the initial one or two, sessions where students can end up contacting therapists. Maybe that's something that we might have to do. But what I don't, encourage teachers to do is just provide solutions on the spot. I mean, we feel compelled to do so. Okay, यार हमें solutions देना है, why not? But those solutions can just be so generic that the students might, lose trust on us. Okay, my teacher told me to do this and it's not working. So is my teacher not qualified enough to do that? Is my teacher someone who, is also failing me at the end of the day, right? So if you don't know what to do, just accept it. That just accept it. Sometimes I go like, you know what? I know what you're going through and I acknowledge it, but I'm not someone who can actually, help you out with this. But what I can do is I'm not backing out. What I can do is I can facilitate a conversation with someone I know who can help you out. So that's
Right.
at the very initial level where you can, talk to someone and provide solutions. If you are trained enough, perfect, very good. But a lot of us don't have enough training on, psychological skills and child development and things like that. So maybe during that case, it's fine to acknowledge that we can only do so much, and you need a professional for that.
Right. Okay. I think there are no more questions. Everybody, if there are any questions, as I did tell you in the beginning and in between the conversation as well, it's more of a question and answer session. Please feel free to write to us. Rehan is still there with us for about 5 more minutes. You can WhatsApp me the way I just received 3 questions. You can write it here, anything that you would like to ask. So please, everyone, I'll encourage you because we're coming to the end of the session. Rehan, just one more question, which I think I have in mind, and I wrote it somewhere, and I just scribbled it out. So, to what extent do you think? Because I'm a teacher, and as you know me really well for almost 15, 16 years now, I always try to come up with something new in every class and everything. I am just now thinking that how can we introduce mental health as a subject in our schools from a young early year? you know, Ensuring that it's a part of our curriculum that we teach. It's a part of our academic planning that we do. So, any idea how can we encourage schools to add it as a school curriculum, just like the other subjects, science, maths, English, we study mental health, emotional health, psychological health. These are the things that are very important for any individual's well-being. So, what do you think? What do you suggest?
Absolutely, and I mean that's something that I've been thinking also, at least for the past few months, because the pandemic has actually taken a toll on almost all of us, right? So at least for the younger ages, right? Like maybe for kindergarten, grades 1, grade 2, of course they are not so aware about their own emotions. How will they even express it out, right? So at that point, what we need to realize is that in the curriculum we need to use activities that foster the idea of emotional regulation, the idea of inhibiting impulses, the idea of expression. So a lot of students, as they are young, right, they just like to talk to us in terms of simple language, right? मुझे ऐसा feel हो रहा है, मुझे ऐसा feel हो रहा है, I'm hungry, I'm not hungry, I want to do this, I want to do that. And at that point, how parents and teachers they respond to children, right, can actually form connections in their brains, which will then foster a particular kind of thinking, right? Will foster a particular kind of thinking, because bachpan se we have this habit of reprimanding children. We have this habit of
Yes.
reprimanding children. Yaar ye tumne kyun kiya hai, ye kyun kiya hai, wo kyun kiya hai? And at that point, right, we are fostering anxiety, or not fostering anxiety at that point, but we are, you, through our parenting, through our education, we are channelizing the child to develop into a person who will be someone, right, who will turn out to be anxious and all. A lot of disorders ki jo foundations hoti hai, right, they actually are put in the early age, in the early age.
Hmm.
A lot of disorders, anxiety, depression, right, a lot of these disorders ka jo prime hota hai of occurrences, it's actually young adulthood. I'm not saying that ये कभी और नहीं
Okay.
हो सकता है, right? You need
Okay.
triggers in the environment, and it can happen at any point, but you would see a lot of mental disorders, they actually emerge during young adulthood, during the late teenagers and the young adulthood age. Why does that happen? Because एक तो आपकी development का period होता है around the ages of early childhood, right up to the ages of 5 and 7, right? But that was like
Right.
the old school of thought. कि यार, your brain develops initially, and when it develops initially, and that's it, your plasticity is done. It's done. Your brain will not change for the future, right? But now, modern day neuroscience is telling us that our brain constantly changes. It's plastic, right? The concept of neuroplasticity, जिसे हम कहते हैं, कि our brain is like a plastic structure. You can mold it in different ways that you want to, right? You can change it around in whatever ways you want. And the second wave of brain development that occurs is at the age of 13, 14 years. That's another
Ah.
that's the another period of time where the brain is developing rapidly. So
Hmm.
adolescence actually is a period of harnessing a lot of different things. right? There was this article which titled adolescence as an age of opportunity. कि जो बचपन में हो गया, it's fine, but now you have another opportunity to harness to shape a child's behavior for the future. So at early years we can take these simple steps. Okay, how we reprimand students, what we tell them, what are we fostering, what are we paying attention to. That's how we can teach children, right? For example, I go like, do you see that person over there? How are they feeling? Are they crying? Why do you think they are crying? Kya hua hai? That's how parents and teachers should speak to the child, right? Not only make them aware about their own emotions, but also make them question ke, how do I identify emotions in other people and myself. Because these simple strategies can serve as learning opportunities for children to then use later on in their lives, right? Emotional regulation, jaise hum kehte hain, right? So that's like a simple thing we can do for the young children, like very young. As children grow older, of course, they have the ability to read, write. So in our curriculum, then, right, we can use storybooks. We can use storybooks that have themes about mental health, right? Usually, हमारी story books में क्या content होता है, right? I mean, friendship foster करते हम. We have the idea of patriotism. We have the idea of being a good citizen. Yeah,
Morality,
we have
values.
all these themes that emerge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we need storybooks. We need storybooks that foster mental health, right? We can have superheroes who actually were facing mental health issues, and now they are the ones who are now taking some steps. They may not be perfect. There's never a perfect scenario. We don't want to like overemphasize the idea that it's all flowers and it's all colorful stuff, but talk about hardships, normalize hardships, right? So storybooks ke under we can do this for like children who are like about 6, 7, right up to like 10 to 12 years. We can foster this in their curriculum in this manner. And if students are now in their teenagers, so phir to we can have separate curriculums altogether where we have like extra learning modules where maybe once a week or maybe once in a month we have these seminars where students are actually taking part in like mental health awareness campaigns. They're interning at different places, they're volunteering at different places for them to even realize what's going on, even if they don't have any issue going on in their lives, just to understand what exists out there in the actual world, right? So that's something that we could do, and that would give them a very good hands-on experience as well in terms of internships. We lack that as a society as well. We start these so-called internships towards grade 9 and 10, और हमें बस सर्टिफिकेट के लिए जाना है, इंटर्नशिप के लिए, वो हमारे सीवी के अंदर आ जाएगा, and that's going to be a form of learning. But I mean, आप क्या सीखोगे उसके साथ? I mean, no one cares about a piece of certificate at the end of the day. I mean, everyone does a so called internship at a hospital or a voluntary service. What are you taking out of it, right? That's what matters, and how we structure that. So that's probably more important. So these are like small tips and techniques that we can use to basically foster mental health in the curriculum per se. I mean, we can't change the whole curriculum, unfortunately, but simple steps I think can foster it.
Rehan, I must say that in the entire conversation, the last part was my favorite. I thoroughly,
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed because it was something that I feel that we all need to learn. Physical health, everybody talks about. We somehow, I don't know why, we tend to forget or we tend to negate or deny the importance of psychological and emotional health. Extremely important for the well-being of any individual. Rehan, I would really like to appreciate, in fact, encourage and invite you, request you, if you could give me one more day, and if you can talk about brain development and disorders, because this is
Sure,
something that I would like to learn from you. Because while you
sure.
were talking and you said it develops in the early years and then it moves to the formative years, then there's a second chance of development in the teenage, and then it is actually there for the rest of your life. Something as teachers, how can we ensure that the right education is imparted or given at the time when the brain is in its developmental stages? How can we remove anxiety, or not remove, but at least mitigate anxiety, depression, and all the mental disorders and emotional disorders at the time when it can actually be easily curtailed, not to take it to the point where it becomes incurable. So you see something like
Mhm.
that if we can talk about. So I will request you here if you can give me another time to learn
Sure,
from you.
sure, sure. We can talk about that, of course. And a lot of this actually goes with the idea of mindset as well, right? I mean, as
Yes,
educators,
yes, yes.
one of the theories that a lot of educators these days are looking into is the mindset theory, the whole idea of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, right? And up to mindset theory has been established using a lot of different studies, but now it's also based on praise, right? Like how are we praising children? um, the
Okay.
way we praise children can also have an impact on their ability, their development, and now we are now looking at how that impacts the brain. So for example, I tell you, oh, good job, you are so smart, Dr. Kiran, and you did this so well. Oh, you are so capable, good job, keep it up, right? Now that works if things go well. If things go well, that's working, that's a
Hmm.
very great thing. But the idea
Hmm.
is, what are we praising? We are praising the outcome. We are
Yeah,
praising the
yeah.
outcome. Good
That's
job.
the
You
outcome
are
of the
so
process.
smart. You are so smart. You got an A grade. आपने अच्छा किया है.
Yeah.
You got an A grade. A star लाओगे कुछ लाओगे. You will get a treat from me. You will get a treat from me. Mobile चाहिए, grades लाओ. Mobile चाहिए, ये करो. All of those things. What are we doing? We are
It's a
praising
stick
the
and carrot
outcome.
philosophy. You're showing the carrot and you want the child to just reach out
Exactly.
to that carrot.
Exactly. We are using the whole good old
Uh,
reinforcement techniques,
very
जो
old
हम कहते
traditional
हैं,
approach. Only the words
right?
have changed, but the idea remains the same.
Exactly. हम
Yeah.
outcome को praise करते हैं, but
Praise
while we
करते हैं,
praise the
process को
outcome,
नहीं करते
it
हैं.
it
We get,
works well as long as things go right. But when things
yeah,
go wrong, that is the problem, where students, then they can't control their emotions and regulations. They go like, "Yeah, I was so good so far. What has happened to me right now?" And this is what happens when they enter the whole O and A level system, where it gets more challenging. When it's not
yeah,
just your hard work, it's more about how you control your emotions, your social
true.
scenarios, and all of that, right? So at that point, when the world changes for these students, they are lost. They are lost. और तब जाके फिर ये anxieties, depression, and all range of different issues manifest themselves. So as parents, as educators, we need to focus on the process. We need to tell them,
Hmm, hmm.
you worked so hard. You worked so hard, and because you worked hard, because you did this, because you did that, that's why you got your end outcome that you wanted. Which means that
See,
outcome
again,
kuch
it's
ho
a
bhi na
complete
na ho,
changeover.
the process. Exactly. The
Yes. You see,
process is
Rehan,
what
it's a
matters.
complete changeover of the mindset. It's a completely different
Exactly.
mindset. When people talk about the
Exactly.
process and not the product. Right. I think,
Exactly.
everybody, if you do not have any questions, we will like to come to an end. Rehan, I just want to listen more and more and more and learn more from you. See, this is how the world is.
Sure.
At once you were my student, now I'm your student.
Well, we all are students in life. It's always a learning
Yeah,
curve. So I'm
it's
glad
always a
I'm
learning
glad that
curve.
I could contribute, and
Right.
yeah, I mean, it
And
would be
I'm
my pleasure.
I'm sure the people who are listening to us, the people who have been contributing in the chat box, they must have learned something. It is available, everybody. If you feel like asking any questions, please feel free to write to us. I will communicate this message to Rehan. Rehan will be answering. But Rehan, I will definitely be asking you to come one more time. Let's talk about brain development and disorders,
Sure,
please. Please write it
sure,
down,
sure.
mark your calendar. Let me know whenever you are available, any Sunday, and we will definitely be doing it. This is something I
All
think
right.
we all need to learn. We need to learn.
Yep.
So thank you,
Sure,
everybody.
sure.
With this, we come to an end. Rehan, thank you very much once again, and the
My
rest of
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure.
You can't say no to it, actually.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Now you're gonna use this against me.
Yes, yes, yes. You're all the
Okay.
more welcome
I'm
to do
happy.
that.
I'm happy. I'm happy you can use
Uh,
this against me. Chale.
Thank you very much, everybody. Please, as I always say at the end of the webinar, I'm sure you must have learned something. Please use these learnings in a productive manner, in a positive manner. And the very important thing that I always say, please spread positivity around. That is what we need in the society. So thank you and Allah Hafiz.
Office.